Good afternoon and welcome to Pittsburgh City Council's Cablecast public hearing for Wednesday, May 3rd, 2023, relative to Bill 2023-1178. Will the clerk please read the title of the bills?
Bill 1178, an ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code, Title IX Zoning Code, Article 5, Section 925.06, setbacks, to update the standards for certain HVAC equipment and setbacks.
Thank you. My name is Erica Strasburger, member of Pittsburgh City Council District 8, and the first order of business will be a brief introduction by Zoning Administrator Corey Lehman.
Thank you. This is an amendment to the zoning code as stated, and this really came about as a collaboration with the council office to address some concerns that had come up where just for sometimes simple replacements of HVAC units in particularly in a heat wave, there was a lot of additional time built into the process for zoning in what really is a pretty common location for HVAC units. Usually they're often located within a side yard next to a house, and in Pittsburgh, that's very often within a side yard setback. The current process for an HVAC in a setback is something called an administrator's exception, which requires a little bit of an additional step. Applicants will need to get a neighbor's letter from the adjacent property owner. And they need to provide screening, and then we'll provide them with a poster, and they'll have to post a notice for 21 days prior to the approval of and issuance of the zoning application, which is known as a record of zoning approval, or otherwise known as a ROSA. And that includes an additional fee of $100 for the administrator's exception. At the time that ROSA is issued is when then the actual permits for work can be issued by our sister department at PLI. The proposed changes really streamline the application process, but maintains the important standards, particularly around screening and adherence to the noise standards under the code. This allows also clarifies where rooftop mounted HVAC is allowed within setbacks as well if the home is already built within a setback. And it does require that equipment is screened from the street or abutting properties when it's viewed from ground level, and allows HVAC units in setbacks except for emergency generators, which are treated a little bit differently. It still maintains that all the noise and operational standards must be met. And then the big change here is that it's permitted by right, not an administrator's exception, so it doesn't require the additional 21 days, the additional fee, and those other steps. The other changes, we clarify that HVAC equipment is permitted, is just a standard accessory use in residential and commercial zoning districts. That's really a bit of housekeeping, but I just wanted to make sure that that was clear for posterity. And then the other item is that it does continue to allow HVAC units in front yards and front setbacks only where the HVAC unit is behind an existing stoop or porch, so and screened, so it wouldn't be visible from the street. It wouldn't be protruding out from the front of a property, and that really that's the entirety of the change. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that explanation. So to summarize, we are removing some of the cost and some of the wait time and notification to neighbors for HVAC units, HVAC units that might already exist in a location that, if it's a replacement of an existing location, or if the residential unit already exists in a setback. So some of the easier, kind of simpler ones where you wouldn't think you would perhaps need to pay the additional fee, notify your neighbors, wait 21 days, have a hearing necessarily. It'll kind of speed up that process. So really appreciate your work on this. So we will now move to testimony from registered speakers. When you're called to speak, please give your name and address for the public record. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address council. If you did not register in advance, after we've exhausted list of registered speakers, we can open up testimony for anyone who's in the audience who would like to speak. We have one registered speaker, David Wells.
Thank you. I really had registered primarily just to be able to take an opportunity to understand what the changes might be. And at this point, I do not have any further comments.
Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. Not seeing anyone else either online or in chambers to testify, and having exhausted the business of this public hearing. Well, actually, I will not quite adjourn yet. I'll just offer some comments. I was honored to be able to work with Mr. Lehman, the zoning administrator, city planning, to be able to do this. These are the types of what seemingly small but important and impactful, cleanups of our code, pieces of legislation that help individuals and businesses do business with the city and make things just that much easier when it comes to their own quality of life, when they're in a situation like a couple of residents in the district I represent experienced last summer during an extreme heat wave. Is exactly the time when your air conditioning unit tends to go out, attempting to replace it and it taking weeks and weeks just because of the process that was set up. This is attempting to minimize the time and the cost of something that should be seen as pretty simple, a simple improvement to your house, while still, I believe, balancing the concerns or potential disturbances to neighbors when it comes to noise or kind of aesthetics of what an HVAC unit might do. So I think this is a great piece of legislation. I'm glad to see it come to this point, and I look forward to voting on it and to seeing the support of my colleagues in a final vote in the next couple of weeks. So thank you for your work on this, and thanks to everyone for their consideration and their work. So at this point, having exhausted the business of this public hearing, this meeting is adjourned.